here we want to look at some compound interest problems. So regardless of whether they're saying you're investing money or if they talk about loans, they'll say assuming no payments are made. So your loan is just sitting there accruing interest. There are other formulas for what happens when you have payments, but as you can imagine, if you're also paying and computing interest, it's a little more complicated. So these ones are just, they're sitting there either making money, or if it's a loan, they are growing the amount that you owe. And so we'll look at our formula first for this, is that the end amount equals P times 1 plus R over N to the N times T. So A is your ending amount, P is your principal, so how much money you took out in the loan in the beginning or put into an account. R is your rate, but it's always as a decimal. So like 13 and 13%, we would put 0.13. So rate, just be careful to put it as a decimal. Same thing as like 50% would be 0.5, so decimal version of the percent. And then T is time, usually measured in years. And then N is the number of times compounded per year. So what does compounded mean? How many times they calculate your interest. So let's say if you put $100 in a bank account, and they only calculate your interest once a year. Then at the end of the year, they say, okay, let's say it's 5%. They give you an extra $5. They say you have $100, you get 5% of that, now you have $105. But now picture the next year when they figure out how much money they owe you, it's not $5 again. They have to figure out what's 5% of $105 because your balance is going up. So compounded interest in that way can grow on top of growing. So the number of times compounded is how many times they do that. So sometimes they'll say quarterly, so just like a football game, 4 quarters or 4 quarters in a dollar. Quarterly means 4 times a year. If they say annually, that means once a year. Monthly is 12 times a year. If daily, 365 times a year. So this one says semi-annually. So like a semi-annual sale, that means twice a year. Okay, so for our problem, let's try to figure out what we have here for all these. So it looks like our principal P, how much money we put in to start with, was $2,000. And then our rate, and we'll be careful to write it down as a decimal, 13%, right? So move it 2 decimal places to turn them into means 13.5 out of 100, so 0.135. And then our time in years is that sitting there accruing interest for 5 years. And then how many times is it compounded per year? Semi-annually means twice a year. And so we'll just plug all these into our formula. So 2,001 plus 0.135 divided by 2. And then here, this is N times T, so 2 times 5. If you want to just write away, if it's an easy multiplication, just write down 2 times 5 is 10. And then honestly, you can really type this all into your calculator at once or different parts of it. They definitely don't expect you to do these decimal calculations by hand. Just be careful about your parentheses and exponents. And so it looks like this one, if we type it in, turns into $3,843.34. So mainly just deciding what all the parts of the formula are.